17 years ago, Laura Jenkins vanished after a job interview, leaving her children with nothing but silence and suspicion. At the heart of it lurked a faceless threat, someone who watched, followed, and made sure her hope for a better future never came true. But when Emily and Noah uncovered hidden letters, photographs, and the long-locked basement door, their mother's secret world finally began to unravel. And just listen to how shocking the twist in this drama turned out to be, and why justice ultimately prevailed. In the quiet town of Maplewood, where the streets were lined with oak trees and the air smelled of fresh pastries from the local bakery, the disappearance of Laura Jenkins had become a haunting legend. 17 years ago, Laura, a devoted mother of two, vanished without a trace after a promising job interview at the town's only advertising agency. Her life had been filled with dreams of financial stability and a better future for her children, Emily and Noah, who were just 10 and 8 at the time. Laura was a beacon of hope in the community, known for her infectious laughter and willingness to help others. But that day, her laughter was replaced by an eerie silence that would echo through Maplewood for years. The day of her interview, Laura had dressed in her best blouse, a soft blue that matched her eyes, and had meticulously styled her hair. She had promised her children that after the interview they would celebrate with ice cream at their favorite shop. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the streetlights flickered to life, Laura never returned home. As the hours turned into days, the search for Laura intensified. Flyers with her smiling face plastered across them filled the town, and volunteers combed the woods and fields surrounding Maplewood. Local news stations reported on the case, and the community rallied together, holding candlelight vigils that lit up the night sky. Despite the outpouring of support, the search yielded no answers. 17 years later, Emily and Noah had grown up in the shadow of their mother's absence. They had been raised by their father, Mark Jenkins, who struggled to keep their family together. The pain of losing Laura was etched across his face, and the weight of her disappearance had transformed him from a hopeful man into a shell of his former self. Emily, now 27, had taken it upon herself to be the caregiver. She worked 2 jobs and often sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of her younger brother, who was now 25 and still trying to find his way in the world. The 2 siblings shared a bond forged in loss and resilience, but the unanswered questions about their mother's fate loomed over them like a dark cloud. One cool autumn afternoon, as Emily was cleaning out the attic of their home, she stumbled upon an old dusty box. It was filled with photographs, letters, and mementos from their childhood. As she sifted through the contents, a small yellowed envelope caught her eye. It was addressed to Laura, and upon opening it, the contents sent a shiver down her spine. Inside was a letter from someone named Evelyn, someone Laura had apparently confided in about her job interview. The letter spoke of secrets, of plans that went beyond just securing a job. It hinted at something larger, something dark that had been brewing beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic town. "What is this?" Emily whispered to herself, her heart racing as she read the words that seemed to bleed off the page. "You need to be careful, Laura. There are people who don't want you to succeed." The letter mentioned a meeting, a place to go after the interview, but it was cryptic, lacking any concrete details. Emily's mind raced. Why had she never seen this before? Why hadn't her mother mentioned it? A mix of intrigue and dread filled her as she realized that this letter might be the key to unlocking the mysteries surrounding her mother's disappearance. Just as her thoughts spiraled, a loud crash echoed from the basement. Startled, she dropped the letter and rushed to the top of the stairs leading down to the darkened space below. "Noah, are you down there?" she called out, her voice trembling. "I'm fine," came Noah's distant reply, but there was an unsettling edge to his tone. With her heart pounding, Emily cautiously descended the creaking stairs, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. The basement was dimly lit by a single bulb, casting long shadows that danced along the concrete walls. She could see Noah rummaging through old boxes, a look of frustration on his face. "What happened?" Emily asked, concern seeping into her voice. "I was just trying to find that old game console," Noah muttered, but his eyes darted to the far corner of the basement, where a heavy door stood slightly ajar. Emily felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the door. It had always been locked, a relic from their childhood that had become an afterthought over the years. "What's behind there?" she whispered, more to herself than to Noah. I don't know, but it's always been creepy. Noah shrugged, but Emily could see the unease in his eyes. Ignoring the voice in her head that warned her to turn back, Emily reached for the doorknob, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. As she pushed the door open, it creaked loudly, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dust and cobwebs. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, and as her eyes adjusted to the shadows, Emily gasped. Old furniture lay scattered throughout the room, but it was the sight of a large trunk in the corner that drew her attention. "What is this?" she murmured, stepping inside. As she approached the trunk, the feeling of being watched washed over her. The secrets of the past clung to the air, and she knew somehow that within this trunk lay pieces of a puzzle that had eluded her for nearly 2 decades. "Emily, maybe we shouldn't," Noah began, but she couldn't hear him over the pounding of her heart. She knelt beside the trunk and with trembling hands lifted the lid. What lay inside would change everything she thought she knew about her mother, her family, and the day that had haunted them all. The secrets of the past were finally ready to be unveiled, and with them, the promise of answers, answers that could lead to both healing and danger. As the trunk creaked open, a gust of cold air rushed out, enveloping Emily in a shroud of mystery. The darkness whispered secrets, and she knew that their lives would never be the same again. As Emily pushed the door open, the creaking hinges whispered secrets long silenced by time. A wave of musty air rushed out, carrying the scent of damp wood and forgotten memories. The dim light from the overhead bulb cast a ghostly glow over the room, revealing a space that felt both foreign and eerily familiar. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, dancing in the weak light, as if they were remnants of the past trying to communicate. Noah hesitated at the threshold, his heart pounding in his chest. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The fear of what lay behind that door clawed at him, but the thrill of discovery was equally intoxicating. He glanced back at the staircase, where the faint sounds of their father moving about the house echoed like a distant heartbeat. Emily stepped inside, her resolve hardening. "We have to know, Noah, for Mom." The words hung in the air, a fragile thread binding them to their mother's memory. She felt a surge of determination, ignited by the warning in Evelyn's letter and the possibility of answers that had eluded them for nearly 2 decades. The trunk sat in the center of the room, its dark wood gleaming with the sheen of age. It was large and imposing, its edges worn and rounded, hinting at years of use, possibly filled with treasures or forgotten remnants of their mother's life. The latch was rusted, but a firm tug released it with a reluctant groan, as if the trunk itself were waking from a long slumber. As Emily lifted the lid, a cloud of dust erupted, momentarily obscuring her view. She coughed, waving her hand in front of her face, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and dread. Finally, the dust settled, revealing an assortment of items: a faded quilt, several old photographs, and a stack of letters tied together with a fraying ribbon. Noah stepped closer, peering over her shoulder as she gingerly picked up the first photograph. The image was a snapshot of a younger Laura, her radiant smile illuminating the room even now. She was surrounded by friends, their faces alight with laughter, a stark contrast to the somber reality of her disappearance. Emily felt a pang of longing, a bittersweet reminder of the mother she barely remembered. "Look at her," Noah murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "She was so happy." Emily nodded, her throat tightening. "I wish I could have known her like that." She set the photograph aside, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached for the bundle of letters. The ribbon was frayed, but it held strong, as if guarding the words within. "Do you think these are—" Noah began, but he didn't finish his thought. The implication hung heavy in the air, and they both understood the weight of what they might uncover. With careful precision, Emily untied the letters, her heart racing as she unfolded the first one. The handwriting was elegant, yet shaky, a clear indication of the writer's emotional state. She read aloud, her voice trembling. "Dear Laura, I hope this letter finds you well. I must warn you, there are things you do not know, things that could put you and your family in danger. Please, be cautious with your job search. I cannot say more in writing. Just know that I care and want to protect you." The words sent a chill down Emily's spine. She glanced at Noah, whose brow was furrowed in concern. "Who is Evelyn? Why did she feel the need to warn Mom? I don't know, Noah replied, his voice low, but it sounds like she knew something important. Emily continued reading, her heart racing as she unearthed more letters, each one revealing snippets of a story they had never been told. The warnings grew increasingly dire, filled with cryptic references to a shadow that loomed over Laura's life and the consequences of ignoring the warnings. As she reached the last letter, her hands shook. It was dated just days before Laura's disappearance. Dear Laura, I'm afraid I can't protect you anymore. I'm watching from a distance, but I can't intervene. You must be careful. Trust no one. I wish I could explain everything, but it's not safe. I fear that if you proceed, you may never return. The final words echoed in the silence, wrapping around them like a shroud. Emily felt her breath hitch, a sense of dread curling in her stomach. What does this mean? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know, but we need to find out, Noah replied, his expression grave. We can't let this go. We owe it to Mom. Before Emily could respond, a noise from above startled them, a heavy thump, followed by the creak of floorboards. They exchanged worried glances, the reality of their father's presence weighing heavily on them. Mark had been struggling since Laura's disappearance, and the thought of him discovering them in the basement, poring over their mother's secrets, sent a ripple of anxiety through Emily. Let's put everything back for now, she said, urgency in her voice. We can't let him see this yet. Reluctantly, Noah nodded. Together, they carefully returned the letters to the trunk, the weight of their discovery pressing down on them. The mysteries of the past were clawing their way back into the present, and the basement felt more like a crypt than ever. As they closed the trunk and locked the door, Emily's mind raced with possibilities. Who was Evelyn? What had Laura been involved in that required such caution? The questions gnawed at her, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something monumental. Noah, she said, her voice steadying, we can't just leave everything as it is. We need to uncover the truth, no matter how dark it may be. Agreed, he replied, determination flashing in his eyes. But we have to be careful. If our dad finds out, Emily nodded, understanding the delicate balance they now had to maintain. The basement door had opened, but with it came the potential for more than just answers. It held the possibility of danger, of rekindled pain. As they ascended the stairs, the weight of their discovery lingered like a cloud overhead. The house felt different now, the walls imbued with secrets that had lain dormant for far too long. Each creak of the floorboards echoed their resolve, a silent promise to uncover the truth about their mother and the shadow that had loomed over their family for nearly 2 decades. They stepped into the living room, where Mark sat in his usual spot, the flickering glow of the television illuminating his weary face. He looked up as they entered, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Everything okay down there? He asked, his voice rough with fatigue. Yeah, just cleaning up, Emily replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle. You know how dusty it gets? Mark nodded, but Emily could see the worry etched in his features. The years had aged him beyond his time, the grief etched into the lines of his face. It pained her to see him like this, yet she couldn't allow him to know what they had uncovered not yet. As they settled into their evening routine, Emily felt the weight of the letters pressing against her consciousness. The darkness of the basement was no longer just a space filled with old memories. It was a portal to a past that was fighting to resurface. And deep down, she knew they were on the brink of uncovering something that could shatter their fragile existence, or finally bring them the closure they had been desperate for. The night wore on, but sleep eluded her. Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with the implications of what they had discovered. Noah's steady breathing beside her offered a semblance of comfort, yet the uncertainty loomed large, casting shadows across her thoughts. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, and perhaps new dangers. But for the first time in years, Emily felt a flicker of hope. They were no longer just children haunted by their mother's absence. They were detectives in a mystery that had woven itself into the fabric of their lives. And with each thread they unraveled, they edged closer to the truth. The air in the basement felt heavier now, thick with anticipation as the siblings exchanged glances, each grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. Emily's heart raced, fueled by a mix of dread and determination. The trunk loomed before them, a silent sentinel guarding secrets that had long been buried beneath years of sorrow and unanswered questions. Noah shifted uneasily, his fingers nervously tracing the edges of the trunk's battered surface, as if he hoped it would reveal its mysteries through touch alone. "Do you think we should open it?" Emily's voice wavered, barely above a whisper. The thought of what lay inside was both tantalizing and terrifying. She could feel her pulse quicken, the echoes of their childhood fears resurfacing. "Of course we should," Noah replied, his bravado a thin veil over the apprehension flickering in his eyes. "It's our mother's stuff. We have to know what she was hiding from us." With a deep breath, Emily nodded. She knelt beside the trunk, her fingers trembling as she fumbled with the rusty latch. After an agonizing moment, the latch clicked open, and she lifted the lid. Dust motes danced in the dim light, swirling in the air like lost spirits as the trunk creaked open, revealing a trove of memories. Inside, the scent of aged paper wafted up, mingling with the musty smell of the basement that had long been forgotten. Emily's gaze fell upon a stack of photographs, their edges yellowed with time. She carefully lifted one, revealing a candid shot of Laura at a picnic in Maplewood Park, laughter frozen on her face like sunlight trapped in amber. Emily felt a pang, a bittersweet reminder of the vibrant life that had been snuffed out too soon. "Look at her," Noah murmured, leaning closer. "She was so happy." "Yeah," Emily agreed, her voice thick with emotion. "But look at the date on the back." She turned the photograph to reveal the faded ink. It was from just weeks before Laura disappeared. The world had been blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface of their lives. As Emily sifted through the photographs, she found letters tucked between them, some addressed to Laura, others written by her. Each word was steeped in caution and fear. One letter, penned in a shaky hand, caught her attention. "Laura, please listen to me. You're in danger. They know you're looking for a job. Don't trust anyone. I can't say more. Just be careful." Asterisk Emily's stomach twisted at the implication. Who was this person and what had Laura stumbled into? She glanced at Noah, who was now examining a small velvet pouch that had been nestled at the bottom of the trunk, his brow furrowed in concentration as he untied the strings, revealing a collection of delicate silver rings in a tarnished locket. "This must have meant something to her," he said, holding up the locket. "It's beautiful." Emily leaned in closer, her breath hitching. "Open it," she urged, her curiosity piqued. Noah hesitated for a moment, glancing at his sister before finally prying it open. Inside, a tiny photograph of a young girl stared back at them, a girl who bore an uncanny resemblance to Emily. She had dark hair that framed her face in soft waves, and her smile was eerily familiar. "Who is she?" Noah whispered, his voice laced with disbelief. "I don't know," Emily replied, her heart pounding. "But we need to find out." As they continued to sift through the trunk, each item they unearthed weighed heavily with significance. A diary, its pages filled with Laura's elegant cursive, revealed fragments of her thoughts, a longing for freedom, dreams of a career that had slipped through her fingers, and hints of a growing paranoia. "I feel like someone is watching me. The job interviews have become a nightmare. I just want things to be normal again." Asterisk. Emily's heart ached for the mother she barely remembered, the woman who had been reduced to shadows and whispers. Each word she read felt like a thread unraveling a tapestry of their past, exposing the raw edges of their family's grief. Noah leaned back against the basement wall, his expression contemplative. "Do you think this has something to do with the way Dad has been acting, with all the secrets?" "I don't know, but it feels connected," Emily replied, biting her lip. "We need to confront him. He must know more than he's told us." Noah nodded, his jaw set with resolve. "Let's go back upstairs. We'll ask him together." As they climbed the creaky stairs, the weight of the trunk's contents pressed down on them. The air felt charged, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. Emily's mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. What if their father had been hiding something sinister? What if he was somehow involved in their mother's disappearance? The moment they stepped into the dimly lit living room, the atmosphere shifted. Mark Jenkins sat in his usual spot on the couch, the flickering television casting shadows across his gaunt features. His eyes, once vibrant, now held a distant look, as if he were gazing through the walls of their home into a past he couldn't escape. "Hey, Dad," Noah said, his voice steady, but the tension was palpable. "Hey," Mark replied, barely lifting his gaze from the screen. Emily exchanged a glance with Noah, silently urging him to take the lead. "We found something in the basement," Noah began, his voice firm. "Something about Mom." Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of concern flashing across his face. "What do you mean?" Emily stepped forward, her heart racing. "We found letters, photographs, things you never told us about, things that suggest she was in danger before she vanished." Mark's face paled and he finally looked up, meeting their eyes, his gaze a mixture of fear and resignation. "You shouldn't have gone down there," he said, his voice low and strained. "Why not?" Emily pressed, her frustration boiling beneath the surface. "We deserve to know the truth. You've been holding us in the dark for too long. What happened to Mom?" For a moment, silence enveloped them, the weight of years of untold pain hanging heavily in the air. Mark took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for the storm that was about to break. "Laura was. She was trying to protect you," he finally said, his voice cracking. "She thought she could keep you safe from whatever was closing in on her." "From what?" Noah demanded, anger rising in him. "From who?" Mark's gaze dropped to the floor, his knuckles whitening as he clenched his hands. "There were people she got involved with through her job searches. I thought it was just a phase, something she could handle. But then it escalated. I didn't want to believe it." "Believe what?" Emily pressed, her patience wearing thin. "That she was in danger, that you let her walk into something that could take her away from us." "I tried to protect you both," Mark shouted, his voice echoing against the walls, a desperate plea that only deepened the chasm between them. "I thought if I didn't say anything, you'd be safe. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." The atmosphere thickened with sorrow and anger, a storm brewing between father and children. Emily felt a surge of emotions, betrayal, sadness, and insatiable need for answers. "You have to tell us everything," she urged, stepping closer. "We can't keep living like this. We need to know what happened to her." Mark's eyes glistened with unshed tears, the weight of his own guilt and grief evident. "I don't know if I can. Some things are better left buried. Or they'll keep haunting us," Noah interjected, his voice steady yet strained. "Just like Mom's memory." As the silence settled once more, Emily's heart raced. The basement had opened a door to their past, one that they had to walk through together. There were shadows lurking in the corners of their lives, and it was time to confront them, no matter how dark the journey might be. With a deep breath, Mark finally nodded, his resolve crumbling like the dust that had settled in the corners of their lives. "Okay, I'll tell you everything, but you need to be ready for the truth. It's not what you want to hear." As they gathered closer, the weight of the moment pressed heavily upon them, and Emily sensed that they were on the brink of unraveling a mystery that had held their lives captive for far too long. The basement door may have opened, but what lay beyond was a labyrinth of secrets, and the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. The air in the Jenkins household felt thick with unspoken words as Emily and Noah sat across from their father at the dimly lit kitchen table. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second echoing the weight of the moment. Mark's weathered hands trembled slightly as he rubbed the back of his neck, his gaze drifting to the window, where the faint light of dusk painted the kitchen in shades of orange and deepening blue. "What do you want to know?" Mark finally asked, his voice low and gravelly. He avoided eye contact, focusing on the darkening sky outside, as if the answers he held were trapped within the clouds. Emily leaned forward, her heart racing. "You said Mom was trying to protect us." "Protect us from what? Who was Evelyn?" She felt a twinge of anger mixed with desperation. For years they had lived with the silence, but now the fragments of their mother's life were beginning to surface, and she craved the complete picture, no matter how painful. Mark sighed, each breath heavy with the burden of memory. "Evelyn was a friend of your mother's. They met during her job interviews. I didn't think much of it at the time." His voice faltered and he stared at the table, as if the worn wood could offer him solace. "I didn't realize how serious the situation was until it was too late." Noah crossed his arms, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "What did Evelyn warn her about? You can't just leave it at that, Dad. We deserve to know." Mark's eyes narrowed, a flash of anger igniting within him. "It's not that simple," There were things happening that I couldn't understand, things I should have noticed. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly agitated. Laura was scared, but she wouldn't let me in. She didn't want to burden us. Emily's heart sank, the weight of Mark's words pressing down on her chest. But we're burdened by her absence, Dad. We need to know what happened. Mark finally met their eyes, his expression a mixture of pain and resolve. Okay, just give me a moment. He closed his eyes as if searching for the right words amidst the chaos of memories. Laura was being followed. She mentioned it casually at first, but then it escalated. She would find things out of place. Her car was tampered with. Her phone was acting strange. I thought it was just stress from the interviews. Emily's breath caught in her throat. What kind of things? Did she ever say who was following her? No, Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. But she received phone calls late at night, always from a blocked number. I should have taken her seriously. I thought it was just paranoia. The revelation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Emily exchanged a look with Noah, the gravity of their father's words settling heavily between them. But why didn't you tell us any of this before? Noah's voice cracked, betrayal lacing his tone. We could have helped her. Mark's expression hardened, his defenses rising. You were children. I thought I was protecting you from the fear of it all. I thought she would come back. The anger in his voice faded, replaced by a deep sorrow. But she didn't. Emily's thoughts raced, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place, yet still feeling agonizingly incomplete. What about the trunk? We found letters, pictures. There was something about a job at the old newspaper. Did that have anything to do with it? Mark's face paled, and he leaned back in his chair, the weight of the past crashing over him. The Maplewood Gazette. Yes, she was excited about that job, but there was something off about the people she interviewed with. I remember. She came home once, shaken, said there was a man who wouldn't stop staring at her during the interview. I thought it was just nerves. Who was he? Emily pressed, her heart racing as she felt the pieces clicking closer together. I don't know, Mark said, his voice a whisper now. But it was after that interview that things got worse. She started talking about Evelyn more, about how they would keep in touch. But it was all so vague. I thought it was just a phase. Emily felt a surge of frustration. Dad, we have to find Evelyn. She might know something. She could have answers. Mark clenched his jaw, the tension palpable. I don't know where she is. She moved away after Laura disappeared. I never thought to look for her. No, Noah said, shaking his head. We can't let this go. We need to find her. She's the only link we have left to Mom. Mark's gaze dropped again, this time to the table's edge, as if he could physically grasp the regrets that haunted him. You don't know what you're asking for. Digging into the past can unearth things best left buried. Emily felt a flicker of anger at her father's reluctance. We've lived in shadows long enough. We deserve to know the truth, even if it hurts. She felt a rush of determination, fueled by her mother's memory. Noah placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, his voice softer now. We'll go together. We'll find Evelyn and get the answers Mom wanted us to have. We can't let fear hold us back anymore. Mark looked between his children, the weight of their shared resolve pressing down on him. If you find her, you promise to come back and tell me everything. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the tender father beneath the facade of anger and grief. Emily nodded, resolute. We promise. As the conversation settled, a silence engulfed the kitchen, laden with unspoken fears and long-buried hopes. The shadows lengthened on the walls, and for the first time in years, Emily felt a flicker of light pushing through the darkness, a possibility of closure, perhaps even justice for her mother. The next morning, Emily and Noah set out to uncover the truth. The town of Maplewood, with its familiar streets, felt different now, as if the very air vibrated with the whispers of the past. They drove to the last known address of Evelyn, a quaint house on the outskirts of town, shrouded in overgrown hedges and memories long forgotten. As they approached, the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead. Emily felt a mix of excitement and dread. What if Evelyn didn't want to be found? What if she held secrets that could open old wounds? Noah parked the car, and they hesitated for a moment, exchanging anxious glances. Ready, he asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty hanging in the air. Emily took a deep breath, nodding. For Mom. Together they walked up the cracked path, the crunch of gravel beneath their feet echoing their resolve. As they reached the front door, Emily raised her hand to knock, the sound of her knuckles rapping against the wood resonating like a heartbeat, a signal to the universe that they were ready to confront the past, ready to unveil the mysteries that had bound them for far too long. And as the door creaked open, a chill ran down Emily's spine, her heart racing with the anticipation of what lay beyond. The air in the Jenkins household felt different the morning after the basement door had finally opened. A heavy tension hung over the breakfast table, where Emily and Noah sat across from their father, Mark. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of their mother's presence. The chipped coffee mug she had always used, the faded floral tablecloth she had sewn herself, and the half-empty cereal box that had been tucked away on the top shelf for years. Each item was a testament to the life that had once thrived in their home, now reduced to mere shadows of memory. Emily's heart raced as she stared at the trunk they had unearthed, still sitting in the living room like an uninvited guest. She could feel its weight, both literally and metaphorically, pressing down on her. The letters, photographs, and diary pages they had found were a tangled web of secrets, and every word was a thread pulling them closer to the truth about their mother's past. "Dad," Emily ventured, breaking the silence that had settled like dust over the table. "We're going to find Evelyn. She knew something. Something that might help us understand what happened to Mom." Mark looked up, his gaze drifting from the table to the trunk. A flicker of something fear, perhaps, crossed his face before he masked it with a stoic expression. "You don't know what you're getting into," he warned, his voice low and gravelly. "Some things are better left buried." Noah leaned forward, his brow furrowed in determination. "We're not going to stop until we know the truth. You can't keep us in the dark any longer, Dad." Mark's hands tightened around his coffee mug, knuckles turning white. "I'm just trying to protect you both. I've lost your mother. I can't bear the thought of losing you too." Emily felt a pang of guilt. She understood his fears. She felt them too. But the thought of allowing their mother's memory to fade into obscurity was unbearable. "We're not looking for danger, Dad. We're looking for answers. For closure." Mark's eyes softened, but the shadows of grief lingered. He finally nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Fine. If you're going to do this, you need to be careful. Evelyn moved away years ago. I don't even know where to start looking." "Maplewood isn't that big," Noah said, his voice brightening with a hint of hope. "If we can find out where she used to live, maybe we can track her down." Emily felt a surge of adrenaline. "We'll start by checking Old Town records. There has to be something that can lead us to her." She pushed her chair back and stood, the determination swelling within her. "Let's go." The siblings raced upstairs to their mother's old study, a small room that had been untouched since Laura disappeared. Dust motes danced in the sunlight filtering through the window, and the air was thick with the scent of aged paper and memories. Emily opened the drawers of the antique desk, each creak of the wood echoing in the silence. Noah rummaged through a pile of forgotten books, flipping through their pages as if searching for a clue. "Here," he exclaimed, pulling out a yellowed envelope from beneath a stack of papers. It was addressed to Laura, the handwriting elegant and familiar. "This looks like it might have something to do with Evelyn." Emily leaned closer, her breath hitching. The return address read, "Maplewood Housing Development, a place that had long been abandoned." "This is where Evelyn lived," she said, excitement bubbling in her chest. "Maybe it's still there. We should check it out." Noah nodded, a determined gleam in his eyes. "Let's go now before Dad changes his mind." The drive to the old development was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The road wound through the heart of Maplewood, past the quaint shops and the park where they had played as children. But today those familiar sights felt different, cloaked in a sense of foreboding. The once vibrant town now seemed to whisper secrets, taunting Emily and Noah with the knowledge that something dark lay just beneath the surface. As they reached the outskirts of town, the landscape shifted. The development was a ghost of its former self. The buildings stood in disrepair, their windows shattered and walls crumbling. Weeds had overtaken the sidewalks, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. It was as if time had forgotten this place, leaving it to rot in silence. "Is this where Evelyn lived?" Noah asked, glancing around at the dilapidated structures. Emily squinted at the crumbling sign that read, Maplewood Housing Development. "It has to be. It looks just like the photos in the trunk." She felt a chill run down her spine as she stepped toward the nearest building, its door hanging off its hinges. Inside, the air was stale and the floorboards creaked beneath their weight. Emily's heart raced as they explored each room, the remnants of lives once lived scattered about like forgotten dreams. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls and broken furniture lay strewn across the floor, a haunting reminder of the past. "Look at this," Noah said, holding up a small, tarnished key he had found beneath a broken chair. "Maybe it opens something." "What would it open?" Emily asked, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. "Maybe Evelyn's old apartment," he suggested, a flicker of excitement lighting his eyes. "It's worth checking." As they made their way to the second floor, Emily's heart thudded in her chest. They stepped cautiously down the narrow hallway, peering into each doorway. Most rooms were empty, but one door caught Emily's attention. It was slightly ajar, a soft glow illuminating the darkened corridor. Noah approached the door first. "Should we?" he asked, hesitating at the threshold. "Let's see," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The thrill of the unknown urged her forward. They entered the room and the sight took Emily's breath away. It was a small apartment, seemingly untouched by time. The walls were lined with bookshelves crammed with dusty novels, and a small desk sat in the corner, cluttered with papers and photographs. "Evelyn's things," Noah murmured, stepping further inside. Emily noticed a framed photo on the desk, and her heart skipped a beat. It was a picture of her mother Laura standing beside a woman with bright red hair and a warm smile. Evelyn. They were both laughing, joy radiating from their faces. "Wow," Emily breathed, picking up the frame. "This must have been taken just before Mom disappeared." Noah leaned over her shoulder, his eyes wide. "It looks like they were close." A sudden noise from the hallway made them jump. A floorboard creaked ominously, echoing through the silence. Emily's heart raced as she exchanged a glance with Noah, both of them silently agreeing. They weren't alone. "Did you hear that?" Noah whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Emily nodded, her pulse quickening. "We should check it out. It might be someone else looking for Evelyn." They stepped cautiously toward the door, peering out into the dimly lit hallway. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air felt charged with tension. Emily's stomach knotted. The thrill of discovery had quickly morphed into dread. As they scanned the corridor, a figure emerged from the darkness. A tall man stood at the far end, his silhouette outlined by the faint light filtering through broken windows. "Who are you?" he called, his voice rough and low. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She exchanged a worried glance with Noah, tensing as uncertainty flooded the air. "We're just looking for someone," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. The man stepped closer, and Emily could make out his features, a weathered face with deep lines etched around his eyes, a look that spoke of hardship and secrets. "You're not supposed to be here," he warned, his tone tinged with menace. "This place isn't safe." "Neither is talking to strangers in an abandoned building," Noah shot back, bravely stepping in front of Emily. "We have every right to be here." The man's eyes narrowed, assessing them with a mix of curiosity and caution. "You shouldn't be digging into things that don't concern you. Leave now while you still can." Emily felt a chill race down her spine, a sense of foreboding washing over her. This man knew something. He was a piece of that puzzle, a fragment of the past that could lead them to answers or further into danger. "Wait," Emily called out, desperation creeping into her voice. "We're looking for Evelyn. Do you know where we can find her?" The man hesitated, his expression shifting. For a moment it seemed as if he might answer, but then he turned away, retreating back into the shadows. "Some things are better left buried," he muttered, his voice fading as he disappeared down the hall. Emily and Noah stood frozen, the weight of his words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. They exchanged a silent understanding, a mix of fear and determination. Whatever secrets lay hidden in this town, they were not going to let them go unchallenged. "Let's get out of here," Noah said, his voice trembling slightly. Emily nodded, her heart still racing as they made their way back down the stairs. The thrill of discovery had been replaced by a haunting realization. The past was not ready to let them go. The further they dug, the closer they came to unearthing the truth about their mother and perhaps the danger that lingered just beneath the surface. As they stepped outside into the fading light, a sense of urgency gripped them. The shadows of Maplewood grew longer, and the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the abandoned development. They had to find Evelyn before time slipped away, and with it, the chance to uncover the truth that had haunted their family for far too long. The search was just beginning, and the answers awaited them if they had the courage to face the darkness that lay ahead. The air outside felt thick with tension as Emily and Noah walked down the cracked pavement, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot like whispers of the past. Their hearts raced with uncertainty, not just from their confrontation with the mysterious man, but from the weight of the secrets they were about to unearth. The cool breeze carried the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a reminder that change was inevitable. Yet some things remained buried. "Do you think we should have pressed him? That man seemed to know something," Noah said, his voice low, almost drowned out by the rustling branches overhead. He shoved his hands deep into his jacket pockets, trying to ward off the unsettling chill that had settled in his bones. Emily shook her head, her brow furrowed in thought. "No, we need to be careful. He might have been trying to protect us, or maybe he was part of whatever happened to Mom." The knot in her stomach tightened as she recalled the warning in his eyes. "Either way, we need to find Evelyn. She's the key." They returned to their car, a tired old sedan that had seen better days, parked under the gnarled branches of a maple tree. Emily slid into the driver's seat, her fingers trembling slightly as she grasped the steering wheel. She glanced at Noah, who was staring out the window, lost in thought. The lines of worry etched on his face echoed her own anxieties. "Where do we even start looking?" he asked, breaking the silence. "We don't even know if she still lives in Maplewood." Emily turned the ignition, the engine sputtering to life. "Let's head to the last address we found. It's worth a shot." She pulled out of the parking lot, the car bumping over potholes as they navigated through the familiar streets of their childhood, now shrouded in an aura of dread and curiosity. As they drove, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The houses they passed seemed to loom over them, their shadows stretching long in the late afternoon light. She glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the man trailing them, but only the empty street stared back. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at the address listed in Evelyn's letter, an old Victorian house that had seen better days. Its once vibrant paint was now peeling, and the garden was overrun with weeds. But there was a peculiar charm about it that drew Emily in. She could almost hear the echoes of laughter that might have once filled the rooms. "Should we knock?" Noah asked, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as he surveyed the house. "Yeah, we should," Emily replied. Steeling her resolve, she unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath her shoes. The sun began to dip low in the horizon, casting a golden hue that contrasted sharply with the unease hanging in the air. Noah followed hesitantly, his footsteps trailing behind hers. Emily approached the door, her heart pounding with each step. She raised her hand and knocked, the sound echoing like a distant thunderclap. They waited in silence, anticipation hanging thick between them. Moments passed, and just as Emily was about to turn away, the door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with wispy gray hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to search their souls. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her voice soft yet firm. Emily swallowed hard. "Are you Evelyn? We're looking for Evelyn Talbot." The woman's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition crossing her features. "That's me. What do you want?" Emily hesitated, glancing at Noah for support. "We're looking for our mother. She disappeared 17 years ago after a job interview, and we found your letter among her things. It mentioned dangers she was facing." Evelyn's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and something darker passing over her face. "Laura," she whispered, almost to herself. "Yes. Do you know what happened to her?" Emily pressed, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily on her shoulders. Evelyn stepped back, motioning for them to enter. "Come in, but be careful. This story is not one to be taken lightly." As they crossed the threshold, the scent of aged wood and lavender filled the air, a stark contrast to the heaviness of their quest. The living room was cluttered but cozy, filled with mismatched furniture and shelves lined with books and trinkets that spoke of years gone by. A flickering candle illuminated the space, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Sit," Evelyn instructed, settling into a well-worn armchair. Emily and Noah exchanged glances before taking seats on the edge of a faded couch, their nerves heightened by the weight of Evelyn's presence. "I knew Laura well," Evelyn began, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "She was bright, full of hope and ambition. But there was something off about that job she was pursuing. I warned her." She paused, her eyes clouding with memories. "I warned her about the people involved. They weren't who they claimed to be." "Who were they?" Noah interjected, his voice sharp with urgency. "What kind of danger was she in?" Evelyn sighed, her gaze drifting toward the window, as if searching for answers in the fading daylight. "They were part of something bigger, something dark. I had my suspicions about the company financial dealings that didn't add up, people who disappeared without a trace. Laura was drawn in, and I could see the shadows closing in around her." Emily leaned forward, her heart racing. "And that's why she disappeared. Because of this job." Evelyn nodded slowly, her expression grave. "I believe so. She was scared, but she didn't want to show it. She was a mother, after all. She wanted to protect you both." Her voice cracked slightly, and for a moment Emily saw the weight of the past pressing down on the older woman. "So what happened after that? Did you see her again?" Noah asked, his tone softening as he recognized the pain in Evelyn's eyes. "I lost contact with her after that. I tried reaching out, but she was already in too deep. I fear she may have stumbled into something far more dangerous than she realized. After a while, I stopped hearing from her altogether." Evelyn's voice trembled, revealing the deep sorrow of a woman who had once been a confidant. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "But you must know something more. Please, we need to find her," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. Evelyn's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing slightly. "If you're going to search for the truth, you need to be prepared for what you might find. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again." With that, she stood up and walked toward a dusty bookshelf, pulling down a leather-bound journal. The cover was cracked and worn, but Emily could see the initials LJ embossed in gold. "This belonged to Laura," Evelyn said, handing it to Emily with trembling hands. "You may find answers within these pages, but be careful. It's not just memories. There are secrets here that could change everything." As Emily accepted the journal, a shiver of anticipation ran through her. She opened it cautiously, the pages filled with Laura's neat handwriting, thoughts of hope and fear intertwined. The room fell silent as the siblings exchanged glances, both aware that they were now on the precipice of a discovery that could either illuminate their mother's fate or plunge them deeper into darkness. "Thank you," Emily whispered, her voice barely above a breath as she felt the weight of Laura's words draw her in. Evelyn's gaze softened, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of her blue eyes. "You're brave for seeking the truth. But remember, truth can be a double-edged sword." With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, Emily felt a surge of determination. They would uncover the mystery surrounding their mother's disappearance, come what may. She glanced at Noah, who nodded in silent agreement, and together they knew they were stepping into the shadows, a journey that would test their resolve and lead them to the heart of their mother's secrets, no matter how dark they might be.